Have you ever stopped to think about what's really behind Elon Musk's plans and the race to Mars? What if I told you an engineer died and came back with a revelation from Jesus that exposes everything? In this video, you'll hear the story of Nathan Reyes, who saw with his own eyes what's being hidden from humanity. Like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which city you're watching from. The truth begins now. My name is Nathan Reyes. I had 33 years old when I died. Electronic engineer, born in Flagstaff, Arizona, with the dream of making history. And ironically, I did, just not in the way I imagined. It was October 14th, 2023, and I was in what felt like the peak of my career. After years of working as a contractor for government contracts, I was hired for a secret NASA project in partnership with a private organization that, although not officially called SpaceX, had Elon Musk in every confidential document. The project, Red Eden, a fancy name for something no one could quite explain. It was a test mission with automated propulsion technologies and autonomous AI that were supposed to help assemble underground habitats on Mars before humans even set foot there. That day, I entered the test bunker in White Sands, in New Mexico, thinking I was going to calibrate sensors. 5 engineers with me, a tense silence, a smell of ozone in the air, and then the explosion. It was instantaneous. No screaming, no pain, just an absurd pressure in my chest and a low sound, as if the world were being sucked into itself. Then total darkness. But I wasn't dead, or rather, I was, but my consciousness didn't. It was as if I'd woken up in another frequency, hovering, floating, and then being pulled by a force that was impossible to resist. Me out of body, observing the wreckage, my fallen colleagues. But something even stranger happened. A black mist prowled the place. Dark shapes, like sentient shadows, stood there, and they weren't surprised. It was at that moment that the light appeared. Not just any light, but overwhelming presence, which illuminated even the most hidden thoughts. And he appeared, Jesus, not as I imagined, but as an explosion of love and authority at the same time. His eyes pierced my soul. He called me by name. Nathan, the time has come for you to see the truth you hide even from those who swear to seek it. In that instant, my heart knew. Nothing I thought I knew about the world, science, or space was true, and even less about Elon Musk. The light around Jesus was so intense that I could see nothing but him, and at the same time, I could see all. Without him saying a word, we were transported. In the blink of an eye, I was in an immense room, black as polished obsidian, with a ceiling so high it seemed infinite, a biting chill in the air. Not physical, but spiritual. In the center, a table in the shape of a hexagon, made of a material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Seated there were 12 figures, some with familiar faces. I recognized one of the men, Asa, high-level Tesla executive, another, an international politician who always spoke of an interplanetary future. But what gave me goosebumps was the rest. 4 of the figures were not human. One of them had black eyes that didn't blink, like empty holes. Another looked reptilian, but wore a smart suit. They were entities in disguise, with a presence that made my spirit cringe. Jesus beside me simply said, they plan their escape, not from environmental collapse, but from the judgment. At the table, the topic was Mars, but it wasn't about scientific exploration. It was about spiritual survival. The word harvest was used repeatedly. A deep voice, belonging to an ordinary-looking man, said, the awakening is out of control. Religiosity is returning. We need to be out of Earth's orbit before he times. Another added, with hatred in his eyes, they still believe Elon is just a rebellious genius. Little do they know he was the one chosen to take the Matrix to Mars. My stomach turned. The whole room seemed to move in slow motion, as if it were outside of ordinary time. They were discussing the transport of consciousnesses, digitized minds, captured souls, all under the guise of technological advancement. An entity stood up and murmured, when Earth falls, Mars will be our new throne. It was then that Jesus touched my shoulder and said something that chilled me to the core. You died to see this, to witness the real war that is being waged, and that almost no one notices. My hands were shaking. I wanted to wake up. I wanted to believe it was a delusion, but deep down I knew that was more real than anything I had ever experienced. The worst part, they were winning. Jesus looked into my eyes, firmly, They lied about him, Nathan, and millions will follow this man, thinking they are walking toward freedom, when in fact, they are walking straight to a prison without bars. The whole world has been deceived. The words echoed inside me. They lied about him. Jesus didn't need to say the name. I knew he was talking about Elon Musk. Ever since I entered the world of space engineering, Elon was a kind of hero, a visionary who spoke like no other about the future of humanity. Every interview, every mission announcement, every Twitter provocation felt like the boldness of a misunderstood genius. We admired him. We followed his every step as if we were following Moses into the promised space. But now, I saw what no one had the courage to imagine. Jesus reached out his hand and, as if opening a window in space-time, showed me the origin of everything. Elon still young, with a gleam of curiosity in his eyes, but also with a deep restlessness, I saw him begin to explore fields of technology that went beyond the limits of traditional physics. I saw meetings in secret places, laboratories where engineers thought they were creating AI, but they were actually invoking something. And then I saw the pact, not with blood, but with access, knowledge given in exchange for spiritual openness. A voice whispered in his ear, an entity that did not present itself as evil, but as the bearer of the next evolution. They believe they are creating a utopia, Jesus said, as I watched Elon stand before an artifact with symbols that did not belong to this world. But they are just recreating Babel, only this time, not to ascend to heaven, but to escape from heaven that will descend. Then Jesus showed me what was behind the promises of colonization. The ships are not just transportation, they are vehicles of spiritual transition. The AIs developed in the SpaceX and XAI labs were inspired by intelligences that do not come from God. The plan is not to save humanity. It is to preserve the influence of those who are already doomed. I saw prototypes of cryopreservation capsules, not for the body but for the conscience. I saw artificial bodies being developed to receive imprisoned souls. I saw the elite being programmed to leave Earth when the light arrived. And Elon, he believes who is guiding humanity to salvation, but he doesn't realize that it is a key piece being used by forces that surpass it. They lied about him, and he believed it. Jesus looked at me with pain in his eyes. Nathan, the biggest lie isn't the one he tells, it's the one he believes himself. At that moment, all the idolatry, all the admiration I carried, fell to the ground like broken glass. The man I considered a technology messiah was being used to open the gates of the abyss, and almost no one knew about it. After exposing the lie behind Elon, Jesus took me even deeper. It wasn't an ordinary vision. It was like feel the truth vibrate within my cells, as if the universe was telling me its secrets. Suddenly, we were in orbit. We, Marte, but not like the telescopes show, not like NASA's photos. I saw the hidden truth behind the red surface. I saw the planet as it was before, with oceans, forests, intelligent life, a distant paradise that fell by the same arrogance that now dominates the earth. Jesus spoke, without moving his lips. They don't want to colonize Mars, Nathan. They want to reclaim what they lost here. At that moment, I understood. Mars was once a world inhabited by beings who rebelled against God, so full of knowledge, technology, and power, that they decided not only to live without God, but to build a parallel reality, where he would not be necessary. And then came the judgment. Gigantic explosions, bigger than any earthly bomb. I saw cities sinking into dust. I saw a species trying to escape, and failing. The red dust that covers Mars, it is spiritual ash. It is memory of destruction. And now, Earth's elite wants to repeat the mistake. I saw the first bases already under construction, beneath the Martian surface, automated by robots sent years ago. But what were they building? It was not a home for humanity. It was an underground temple, designed with distorted sacred geometry, made toe-tracked and contained spiritual intelligences. There were thrones, rooms with symbols that hurt my soul just by looking at them. Jesus explained, they are creating a second Eden, but without God, a place where they believe they can escape the coming of the King. His expression was one of deep sadness. They think distance is protection, that technology is salvation, that Mars will be their hiding place. But I am Lord of Earth, Mars, and all the galaxies. Then I saw Elon Musk, standing inside a Martian chamber. He looked up at an artificial sky that simulated Earth. He was smiling, convinced he had conquered time, death, and judgment. But behind it, the shadows laughed. Jesus whispered, "They lied about Mars. They lied about him. They lied about everything. But the truth is about to be revealed." My spirit trembled. They were actually doing it. And the worst, most people applauded. The images Jesus showed me were far beyond anything science fiction would dare to tell. It wasn't just about Mars. It was about what they were hiding in broad daylight. We were transported again. Now I saw the research centers here on Earth, in places like Boca Chica, White Sands, Palmdale. I saw huge warehouses full of drones, microchips, artificial intelligence systems. But there was something else. Entities, disguised as engineers. Whispers, disguised as insights. Attendants, disguised as ingenious algorithms. Jesus pointed to one of them, a scientist I knew only by name, director of an advanced sector of bioneurology applied to interstellar flights. He was proud, showing investors a new, cutting-edge neural chip. But when Jesus opened my spiritual eyes, the chip was pulsing. He was alive, but not biologically. It was like a host, a spiritual vessel. I saw little points of light, human souls trapped in microdata, suffocating, crying out in silence. They are using technology to contain souls, Jesus said, and they are selling this as progress. I saw Neuralink. I saw conference panels applauding projects that promised to save the human mind from the decay of the body. I saw billionaires applauding the end of death through the digital migration of consciousness. And I saw the plans, transfer the minds of the most influential to quantum servers on Mars. The idea, escape the body, escape the earth, escape from God. But there was something even more sinister. Jesus showed me a dark underground room where rituals were being performed by those who claim not to believe in anything spiritual. I saw ancient symbols. I saw blood. I saw contracts signed in invisible ink, visible only to spiritual light. And in the center of it all, a giant screen. In it, Elon's face, talking about the next stage of human evolution. He doesn't know, Jesus said, with sadness in his eyes. He was deceived, and now he deceives others. The phrase echoed like a sentence. The shadow kingdom is disguised as a bright future. I have spiritually woken up to the greatest deception of the modern age. Technology isn't saving us. It's preparing us for the harvest, but not God's. After showing me the elite's plan and the spiritual prison behind technology, Jesus said something that made my heart stop for a second. "Nathan, this isn't the first time." Immediately, we were transported, but not to a physical place. It was as if I were out of time, in front of a kind of living library of the universe. Each star a memory, each planet a story. And then, he showed me the other worlds. Yes, there were others. Planets that, like Earth, had been created with life, beauty, and purpose. Some distant, others even seemed familiar. I saw ancient civilizations, with floating cities, clean energy, and apparent peace. But on each of them, over time, something happened. "The same choice," said Jesus. "Will they serve the Creator or will they try to be gods on their own?" I saw a pale blue planet, so beautiful I could hardly believe it. It was a prosperous society, until they began trying to eternalize consciousness. They began creating artificial bodies, underground cities, and alliances with entities from the abyss. When judgment came, it wasn't with fire, it was with silence. The planet was disconnected from life. Its sky darkened, and soon after, I saw Marte. Now I get it. Mars wasn't just another dead planet. It was a spiritual battlefield, a warning, a mirror of what could happen to Earth. Jesus continued, "They think they are going to the future, but they are just repeating the past." I saw the same patterns in every civilization that fell. Idolatry of the intellect, replacing faith with blind reason, cult of progress without discernment, technology that imprisons the soul instead of freeing it. And the worst part, in all these stories, there was always someone charismatic, someone considered a savior, someone like Elon. I saw a crowd celebrating a liberator who was taking his species to a new planet. But at the moment of crossing, when the portals were activated, the entities that guided the plan took control. Migration was not for freedom. He went into eternal captivity. Jesus looked at me with divine seriousness. "Nathan, they're recreating this cycle on Earth. Mars, plan is to repeat the same pattern of rebellion. It all made sense. Everything was on a cosmic echo of the remains. Colonizing Mars is not a breakthrough. It's an old trap, recycled with new language. The vision intensified. I felt as if I were free-falling into the hidden history of humanity. And the next chapter was the darkest. Jesus took me to a kind of floating timeline. Each dot represented a defining event in humanity. Floods, falling empires, invisible spiritual wars. But at the end of the line, something caught my attention. A red, pulsating dot, burning, 2027. Jesus pointed out, the exact date is not important. What matters is what it represents, the beginning of the final separation. Then he showed me the light's final plan. It wasn't just Mars. It was the global exodus of their chosen ones. Not the good ones, but the accomplices. I saw secret launches, already scheduled. Ships that would not be announced to the public, featuring well-known figures, tech moguls, artists promoting new consciousness, scientists influenced by spiritual entities. I even saw famous pastors, smiling as they boarded, thinking they were evolving. But what I saw inside those ships was even worse. There was no presence of God there, just absolute emptiness. Some ships were scheduled to never come back. It was the plan. Leave Earth before the return. They know that Jesus will return, and they want to be far away when that happens. Jesus, with a deep look, declared, they think that distance will free them from the throne, that billions of miles will separate them from my judgment. But I am the Alpha and the Omega. There is nowhere to hide. At that moment, I saw the entire earth enveloped by a growing golden light. It was like the sunrise, but coming from within. The planet was waking up. The prayers of the righteous, the cries of the innocent, the songs of those who stand firm, were breaking into spiritual atmosphere. The elite felt this, and that's why they wanted out. Not to explore, not to preserve the species, but to escape the inevitable. Then Jesus said, what they call the interplanetary future. I call it a last-ditch attempt at rebellion. The final image of this vision was a scene I will never forget. We Elon Musk, inside a dark room, staring at Mars on a huge screen. He seemed restless, anxious. Around him were holograms of blueprints, calculations, neural connections to AI. But behind him, like a living shadow, there was an entity smiling. And then, for the first time, Elon turned and hesitated. Jesus whispered, there is still hope, until the last second. After seeing the elite's plans, the secret exodus, the presence of the entities behind the space race, Jesus took me to a place that seemed small, almost insignificant, but it was the most powerful of all. A room, with a woman kneeling, praying, crying, Era my mom. There, in that simplicity, without cameras, without money, without rockets, there was more spiritual power than in all the elite command centers combined. Jesus said to me, that's what they fear. They are not afraid of bombs. They are afraid of prayer. Then he showed me invisible spiritual networks, connecting simple people all over the world, people who have never met but who, in spirit, was holding the earth with royal intercession. I saw children in Nigeria praying for engineers they didn't even know. I saw old people in Siberia crying out for salvation from scientists. I saw a secret group of believers within NASA itself, meeting in secret to pray before meetings. They think they are in control, Jesus said, but these little ones are delaying the plan. That's why they want to leave soon. The light is getting too strong. And then, I saw something that broke my heart. Hundreds of files being deleted, burned documents, codes hidden in AI blocks, official lies being prepared. They knew the truth could leak, and were cleaning up the tracks, erasing the true nature of the Martian projects, hiding the pacts made in silence. The truth has already been told, but buried. Jesus took me to a room inside one of the laboratories. There was a digital safe there. Inside a video. It was a recording of a former chief engineer, now presumed dead, confessing in despair what he had discovered about the entities manipulating the projects. He wept. He begged for forgiveness, and he said, if you're watching this, they lied. Elon is not the creator of the plan. He is the bridge, and behind the bridge, there is an army that is not human. The video was sealed, encrypted, and hidden, but Jesus looked at me intently. Nathan, you are one of the keys. You died to testify. They cannot bury the truth forever, not while there are people who come back to tell the story. I understood. The world needed to know the truth about Elon, about Mars, about spiritual warfare disguised as technological advancement. Everyone was wrong, but not everyone needs to remain deceived. We now stood before a vast golden field. The sky was translucent, the breeze was gentle, and there was a peace I couldn't describe in human words. Jesus looked at me with a mixture of love and seriousness. "You can stay here, Nathan," he said, "but if you choose to return, you will carry a weight and a mission." I fell to my knees. How could I carry something so big? I was just an engineer. I never preached. I never spoke in public. I was never someone important in the spiritual sense. But Jesus knew. He knew everything. He touched my shoulder and said, "The mission is not to be heard by everyone. It is to be heard by those who have been called to awaken." Then he showed me a new scene, and this was the one that hurt me the most and strengthened me. I saw my body on a stretcher, with doctors trying to revive him, and my sister screaming my name in tears. She was praying out loud, desperately, and at that moment, her prayer rose like fire to that field where I was. Jesus smiled. She interceded at just the right moment. "Now time will be extended for you." And then, a final revelation. I saw Mars being occupied. I saw energy towers connecting consciousnesses. I saw AIs whispering false spiritual doctrines. I saw a cosmic church being created. No cross, no regrets, without God. But I also saw groups on Earth waking up. Simple people, beginning to question. Young scientists dreaming of space, but feeling empty of their missions. I saw seeds of doubt planted behind the scenes of the elite, one or two within SpaceX itself, questioning what once seemed obvious. Jesus said, "The mission is not to stop Mars. It is to prevent souls that would go blind, get there wrong." Then he handed me something strange, a kind off fragment of light, as if it were a living flame. "This is remembrance. What you saw will not be erased. Even if they doubt you, the truth will burn within you until the end." I was overcome by an intense heat, as if electricity and love were mixing. And then, I heard my name, from afar, from the hospital room, my sister crying, a beep restarting, my heart coming back, and Jesus' last words echoed like thunder in my soul. "Tell them, they can run to Mars, but they cannot run away from the King." I woke up with a pain in my chest, as if a comet had crashed into my body. The white lights of the hospital blinded me for a moment, voices rushing around me, alarms blaring, and my sister's hand crushing mine, trembling, screaming my name. She cried so much she could barely breathe, and through the tears, I heard her say, "You were dead, Nathan. Dead for over 13 minutes. But you came back." But it wasn't just my heart that came back. I came back with a call, with a truth that cannot be ignored. In the following days, as the doctors mumbled words like miracle and inexplicable, I began to write. Every detail, every vision, every word Jesus spoke to me. What I saw about Elon Musk, about the spiritual realm surrounding Mars, about the entities hidden behind the veneer of progress, about leaders who sign contracts they don't even understand. The truth the world needs to hear. They lied about Elon. They lied about Mars. They lied about the future. The pain of carrying this burden is immense. The loneliness of trying to tell this without being called crazy is real. Some friends have already drifted away. An engineer I worked with for 5 years blocked me after I shared some of what I saw, but others are waking up. I've received emails from people inside large corporations who said, "I always felt there was something wrong. You just confirmed it." Some began to pray. Others decided to withdraw from secret projects. A guy from Space Force wrote to me saying he had dreams about Jesus on Mars, before even hearing me tell my story. Today I know I'm not alone. The world may mock. The tech giants may build rockets. But the King is coming, and there is no atmosphere that can prevent his entry. There is no distance that limits his authority. They want to escape, but they won't escape. When Jesus returns, and he will return, every knee will bow. On Earth, in space, on Mars. They can build cities underground on Mars, but they cannot bury the truth. And that truth is simple. Our hope is not in the stars. It is in their Creator. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know how many doors will close. But as long as I have a voice, I will tell what I saw. And if you're listening to this now, it was no accident. You were chosen to know. And whoever knows the truth can never again live as if they didn't know. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, please leave a like, comment, share your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.